With the start of using oil as a natural resource to power almost everything, the U.S., along with the rest of the world, took a major step in a new direction. One of the first people to find this valuable resource was a man named Edwin L. Drake, who helped dig the world's first petroleum oil well. Within a century, it became almost a necessity for the U.S. and the rest of the world. In 1859, Edwin hit a large oil vein and started the oil boom, which spread throughout Ohio, Texas, and then the rest of the world. Business boomed and grew even larger with the advent of the combustion engine. Petroleum was then firmly established as a main resource by the end of World War II. Petroleum has made possible transportation by engines, land, sea, and air. With all the production, environmental issues have risen. There have been occasional leaks and have affected the local ecosystem. Today, we will be discussing the opinions of America's foreign oil and offshore drilling policies and American movement to alternative energy sources.
Ever since the 1970s and Richard Nixon's oath to become independent of foreign oil, the debate over whether to keep or cut the flow of foreign oil has been a constant issue in both politics and economics. Both opinions have developed a solid foundation, with one supporting the use and one hammering it down.
While much of today's headlines focus on why the country should cut the use of foreign oil, many still stand by the use. Today, many of these supporters stand by the idea that energy independence is detrimental to our need for fuel. They state that with 60% of our oil use being of foreign origin, there would be no way to compensate for the sudden loss of this large amount of oil. Supporters even argue that some alternatives to this issue would cause economic harm, such as how the large usage of corn for ethanol has caused inflation in the United States. Other supporters of foreign oil also fear for the economy. Samu Sasim, who has worked in the energy business for years, claims that by reducing the global demand for oil, we will be negatively impacting our own economy. In other words, some are fearing that by limiting our oil usage to only domestically produced oils, we are increasing the internal demand and competition, which would thus raise oil prices. While the supporters of foreign oil imports offer a strong foundation to their arguments, so do the naysayers. Following the constant problems in the Middle East, where about 6% of our foreign oil originates, many dislike the usage of foreign oil simply because of the instability of the region. According to the State Department's travel warning list, many countries in the Middle East and other areas are very unstable and dangerous, causing concern in many Americans. They believe that our reliance on this unstable oil supply is not only dangerous to us and our economy, they also fear that unfriendly regimes are benefiting from our demand, and therefore threatening our own national security. Some even say that our use of foreign oil is causing a shift of power from importers to exporters, putting our oil in jeopardy. Another rising argument in the crowd of those who support oil independence is that the foreign oil trade is not only unstable, but also prolonging our economic recovery. Due to recent oil imports, our deficit has been made larger, causing many more economic scares.
Another topic of America's dependency on foreign oil, and oil in general, is Outer Continental Shelf OCS drilling, and the controversy that is created by the viewpoints from both agreeing and disagreeing with its allowance. Over the past 25 years, federal prohibitions on OCS drilling has caused the U.S. to send trillions of dollars to overseas oil producers and has jeopardized our national security by making us extremely dependent on foreign energy sources. With the incentive to allow OCS drilling because of the increased job pool, the House passed the Deep Ocean Energy Resource DOER Act to save and create jobs, lower prices for consumers, and allow coastal states to protect 100 miles of their seas. The ability to protect farther off the coast, and by saving jobs, OCS drilling will allow states and federal government to recover from the economic recession and keep the country safer and less dependent on foreign energy providers. With this passed, energy prices would lower both the state and federal government's revenue would increase. Along with its increased revenues, the U.S. would also lose its enormous dependency on foreign oil providers, help the economy recover, gain a huge resource potential, and the U.S. has the technology and expertise to develop safe and profitable OCS drilling points for the long-term benefit of the country. With the idea of the expanding OCS drilling, the reduction of OCS drilling is also a big and well-thought-out idea in opposition to all its supporters. According to the U.S. Department of Energy report, allowing OCS drilling would not significantly lower gas prices until before 2030. Oil companies also secured leases in 1998 and 1999 that enabled them to be exempt from royalties, which in turn basically caused the oil companies to rip off American citizens. Not only are the American people put at risk, but the environment is also becoming more and more of a worry for engineers and other experts as a threat of oil spills and climate changing from OCS drilling becomes more apparent. Regions that are open to drilling are losing sea ice, causing damage to climate and animals that depend on the ice to live safely. The potential for oil spills is also growing as rapidly as the expansion for drilling, and both engineers and other experts agree that the technology to contain oil spills in sea ice environments simply does not exist. With all the controversy that surrounds OCS drilling, going green has been a widely debated option to replace OCS drilling.
America's dependency for oil is a crisis that will not be resolved easily. Getting oil from foreign countries or from offshore drilling can be thought of as an effective short-term solution. However, eventually there will come a time when the fossil fuel market drops. Experts have opinions on how long oil production will last, but realistically, there's no accurate way to know when the oil sources will deplete. When this day comes, if America is not prepared for a transition, then there will be some serious problems. The debate is about finding different sources of energy to replace oil, the benefits of these alternate sources of energy provided compared to oil, and how the transition to alternative energies will affect the economy.
There are many companies that have already started the transition from oil to alternative energies. Many of these forms of energy use the sun, water, wind, or heat. An early attempt to spark green energy is the electric and hybrid vehicles in the transportation industry. In this case, the motors used for gasoline-powered cars only utilize 25% of the energy, while electric vehicles use 90% of the energy. This creates an advantage for electric vehicles because it allows the owners of electric vehicles to make more use of the energy that they get for their money. Even though this might seem more convenient than vehicles powered by oil, there is still the crisis of batteries in electric cars. Engineers are still struggling to make the batteries last longer, and when the batteries are worn out, they become highly toxic. This problem could cause an inconvenience for owners with electric cars because they are left with the problem of getting rid of their toxic batteries. Also, this provokes problems with environmentalists because putting the used batteries into dumps can cause harm to the environment. Along with the transportation industry, the use of alternative energy sources are being implemented all across the country. A well-used source would be nuclear energy created by fission reactions. Nuclear energy already produces 20% of the country's electricity, so it would not be difficult to transform from oil-created energy to nuclear-created energy. Although this transition would be easy, there are many skeptics towards nuclear energy because of its potential catastrophic accidents that nuclear power plants can cause. Also, if the country were to become dependent on nuclear energy over oil energy, the nuclear power plants would become easy targets for terrorists. However, these problems are balanced by the fact that nuclear power plants have hardly any atmospheric pollution because there's no carbon dioxide emissions. This fact balances the erupted problems of potential dangers because it satisfies the demands given by environmentalists. Many companies, like the transportation industry and many of the nuclear power plants, are steps closer to the transition of bringing America to run off of alternative energies. The idea of a nationwide movement towards alternative energy is also thought of to help the economy. For example, the Political Economy Research Institute at the University of Massachusetts said that millions of U.S. workers across a wide range of familiar occupations, states, and incomes and skill levels benefit from the project of transforming the United States into a green economy. Many people around the world are pushing for our country to go green, not only for future problems, but also for the economy because of the slump that it is in. However, the idea of switching the United States to a green economy also provokes a negative opinion. According to the economists behind the 7 myths about green jobs will in turn destroy millions of jobs. These economists believe that these so-called green jobs will instead promote jobs alone instead of productivity, leading to low-paying jobs. Not only is this a possibility, but if the country were to slowly transition to using alternative energy sources over oil, then what would happen to the GM companies and their workers? The fear behind this idea is that if everyone commits to change to green energy, then the old companies that made their money off oil would go bankrupt, and the employees would lose their jobs, which would hurt the economy even more.